Hello leaders, my name is Vanessa G. Nelson and welcome to my 6th Nelson HR Report. I plan to come on every month to talk to you about HR hot topics to keep you informed. So let's start our discussion today with workplace violence. Last week, a company in Aurora, Illinois had a meeting with an employee. The meeting consisted of the HR manager, the HR intern, a union committee person, and a couple of other people in the meeting, and the goal was to terminate the employee. During the meeting, the employee opened fire, shot, and killed 5 people, including the 2 HR professionals, the HR manager and the HR intern, who had only been there for 1 day. It was his first day. So, as HR professionals, we oftentimes have to make unpopular decisions. We have to deliver bad news. How do we protect ourselves from workplace violence? How do we protect the workplace? So I've worked with clients, and when instances happen where we have to terminate employees, one of the things I ask clients, I'll say, what is the temperament of that person? What type of personality do they have? Do they fly off the handle easily? Now, in a lot of instances, this can help when you determine what type of person the individual is before you decide to fire them, before you meet with them to fire them. But however, it's not always the case. It doesn't always work. If you already know that the person flies off the handle or may become delusional and blame victims or blame others for what the actions that they've taken, then those are signs that maybe we need to do something before we meet with that person to terminate them. So what I recommend to my clients is get a security person. Bring a security person in on the meeting. If you don't have security, hire a security person for the day. And then after you terminate the person, don't stop there. Make sure you have someone monitoring your entrances, your exits, to make sure that if this person comes back, somebody can stop that person from going any further into the workplace. Now, experts on workplace violence, they report that there are ways to spot potentially violent people in the workplace. And some of the ways we can spot them is by the following. If they have a controlling nature, if they get unraveled by change, those things should be red flags. Obsession with power, violent opinions, blaming victims, paranoia, everybody's out to get me type of attitude, frequently using malicious references such as he's going to get his or she's going to get hers. They're angry at the point of maybe seething, frequently stressed, have a threatening behavior or a strange behavior. Those type of things should be a red flag to maybe there could be a problem here. So, in order to be safe and in order to protect your workplace, you always want to monitor for those different traits that I just explained to you. However, you want to make sure that you're using security. When I conduct investigations, oftentimes the employee that's being allegedly accused of whatever the situation is, they may be suspended pending the results of the investigation. Now, if the investigation comes back and the investigation is substantiated, then oftentimes I'll say, hey, let's just mail the termination paperwork because you don't want to bring a violent situation into the organization if you don't have to. So it's always good to check with your HR person to make sure what's the best route to take. So be safe. Next, I want to talk to you about this weather we're having. This weather has been treacherous in multiple states. Some states have reported temperatures of -30 or lower. And I don't think weather should never go below 0 at the lowest. And the snow accumulation has been excessive. So a lot of organizations have had to close for a day or two or more, or either have to let employees go home early due to the inclement weather. So the question that I've been getting from several phone calls is, how do we pay people when there's inclement weather? Well, according to, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, employees that are hourly and non-exempt, employers are not required to pay them. They are only required to pay them for hours worked. However, before you even get to that point, you want to have a policy describing how you handle inclement weather and how you pay people. So I know some companies allow people with the non-exempt employees, the hourly employees, to use benefit time. So you would want to have a policy where you would lay that out so employees would know how they would get paid for that time. Now, when we go to exempt employees have to be paid. If you're just closed for a day or you're just closed for 2 days, exempt employees have to be paid. If they work any hours within the work week, they have to be paid. So the only way you don't have to pay an exempt employee is if you close for, say, a whole week. So you want to make sure you're paying people appropriately. Also, leaders, there's no obligation to pay exempt employees if, for instance, you haven't closed for the day, you stay open during the inclement weather, and the exempt employee decides they want to take a day off for personal reasons, then you wouldn't have to pay in that instance. Okay, now we want to discuss the Paycheck Fairness Act of 2019. Currently, women are still paid up to 58% less than men. So because of this gender gap in wages, Congress introduced the Paycheck Fairness Act of 2019. Now, this act would close that gap, and it also would update the Equal Pay Act. Now, the Equal Pay Act is equal pay for equal work for genders, for both genders. So, for instance, if you had two people doing the same job duties, they would be paid the same, like male and female. Now, if you have job descriptions and the job titles are different, it doesn't matter if they're doing the same job duties. They have to be paid the same. Unless there's a business necessity or something like if you pay by seniority, those type of things. Or if someone had a degree, one of them had a degree and one of them didn't. So if those are the exceptions, if you can show why you made a difference in the pay. But for the most part, the Equal Pay Act, you pay both genders the same for equal work, for the work duty. So if the Paycheck Fairness Act passes, this is what will happen. Employers will be prohibited from using salary history, which means that you couldn't look back at a potential employee's pay of what they made their last job or what they made in their last 3 or 4 jobs. That would be prohibited. Also, it would be prohibited for employers to retaliate against employees who share wage information. They will be allowed to share wage information freely. And the last point is they would also offer training programs to women to help them advocate for higher wages. So these are some of the things that are coming down the pike. Now, please note, you want to already get your ducks in a row. Make sure that you're compliant with the Equal Pay Act. Make sure you're paying different genders equal for the same duties. Okay, now I want to talk about a major hospital in Michigan, which was required or ordered to pay a former employee over $500,000 for age discrimination. The Age Discrimination and Employment Act, the ADEA, it covers employers with 20 or more employees, and employees who are over the age of 40 years old are eligible for this law. And what happened was there was a lady who worked at the major hospital for 27 years. And she applied for a position for an HR generalist at the organization. She also interviewed for the position. However, the company hired an external person with less experience, and as the former employee stated, was way younger than her, and she didn't get the job. So she quit because she was upset about it. So anyway, she won her case and she got over $500,000 for this situation. So how do we avoid age discrimination lawsuits? Well, first of all, we want to make sure our policies are lined up to how we hire, how we choose applicants, and we want to make sure we administer our policies appropriately. Second of all, we want to make sure that you're not denying older workers or older applicants an opportunity at your organization. You don't want to hire based on age, or you don't want to lay people off based on age. You don't want to lay people off and replace them with younger people. All these things can set you up for litigation. You don't want to deny promotions and transfers based on age. So the best way to handle it, if there is a situation where you have to hire someone younger than someone, you want to have it well documented. You want to show the business necessity, because they're going to come and ask you, show me why that you didn't give this older person the opportunity, but you gave a younger person the opportunity. Show me why you laid off your whole team of older people and brought in a group of 19, 20-year-olds. Show me why you did that. So you want to make sure that you're very careful when dealing with the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. And lastly, Age Discrimination in Employment Act can be waived by an older worker. However, there's very strict laws and direction in that. So you want to make sure that you contact your legal before you consider having that person waive their ADEA rights. Now it's time for tip of the month. The tip of the month this month is creating a culture of civility. Workplace incivility is on the rise. It is way high, and it's a huge problem in the workplace. Let me tell you why. It can result in several problems, such as high turnover, stress, absenteeism, decreased productivity. It can negatively affect your bottom line and potentially lead to expensive lawsuits. So some of the top things we need to do to promote and create a culture of civility include the following. Number one, remember, civility starts at the top. Leaders, we have to be civil. We have to carry ourselves in a manner that goes down into the organization and allows other people to follow our lead. So we have to be civil. Now, I've had people tell me that the boss walked right by him and didn't say good morning, or that when they said good morning, the boss just growled at them. That's where problems start. So you want to make sure that you're being civil and you're not being rude, you're not being discourteous, you're not being nasty in your comments. You want to make sure that you are civil. And leaders, you want to make sure that your managers are civil. If you need to give them additional training, then we need to do that. Make sure they know the difference between being civil and uncivil. And your values. Number two, your values should reflect your civility. In other words, you want to have it posted, your values posted around the organization in conspicuous places that say, hey, civility is important to our organization. That's how you start building your culture. You want to develop civility policies, and you want to communicate those policies to your employees. Number four, after you do the things we just mentioned, hold people accountable. If you see people that are being uncivil, then hold them accountable. Discipline as appropriate, because you want to get your organization running like a well-oiled machine, and you have to be civil in order to do that. And unless it's a business necessity, it's a good idea to prohibit political conversations. At this time, it's a lot of toxicity in the air regarding politics. So just prohibit political conversations, and that will take care of a lot of tension in the air. Also, hire people who conduct themselves with civility. If you hire people that start out with a nasty attitude, it's going to be problems. And I had that exact problem. I had to let someone go on their very first day because their attitude after the interview was great, but their attitude on their first day was horrendous. So don't put up with that. And also reward good behavior. And one last thing, you want to make sure you're conducting your exit interviews to see why people are leaving. And when you conduct your exit interviews, you want to conduct it with people that are resigning, not the people you terminate, because then you wouldn't get a good read. So you want to conduct those interviews, find out why people are leaving, and act on the reasons. If it's because you have a bully or some other type of thing in that area, you want to take care of that. Act on it. Take action. Well, that concludes my March Nelson HR report. Thank you for your time in viewing this report. And remember to love yourself, enjoy your family, and be safe. See you next month.
Learn how to protect your organization and improve your bottom line. Get your copy of Vanessa's book, 101 Costly HR Mistakes and How to Fix Them. Her book is packed full of real-life experiences and available to you now at Amazon.com or NelsonHRReport.com.